podcast, episode 119, Tipiṭaka, part 57, in which I will continue reading Pacittiya, starting with Roman numeral 33. If this is your first time seeing me, do go ahead and click here. That will take you to the Tipiṭaka playlist. Better to start with episode 1. I'd like to welcome our special guest, Chenrezig. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. It's the Tibetan name for Avalokiteshvara, or Kuan Yin. I believe it was episode 27, or Tipiṭaka part 27. I did a long introduction for him. Let's go ahead and get to the reading, shall we? Also, special guest starring the 8 auspicious symbols of Buddhism. Expiation, Pacittiya 33. At one time, the Enlightened One, the Lord, was staying at Vesali in the great grove in the hall of the gabled roof. Now, at that time in Vesali, a succession of meals of sumptuous foods came to be arranged. Then it occurred to a certain poor workman, quote, "This will not be inferior in that these people duly prepare a meal. What now if I were to prepare a meal?" Then that poor workman approached Tipiṭaka, and having approached, he said to Tipiṭaka, quote, "I, master, want to prepare a meal for the order of monks with the Enlightened One at the head. Give me a wage." End quote. Now, Tipiṭaka had faith and was virtuous. Then Tipiṭaka gave more than a wage to this poor workman. Then the poor workman went up to the Lord, and having gone up, having greeted the Lord, he sat down at a respectful distance. As he was sitting down at a respectful distance, the poor workman spoke thus to the Lord, quote, "Lord, may the Lord, together with the order of monks, consent to a meal with me tomorrow." End quote. Quote, "But sir, do find out, the order of monks is large." End quote. Quote, "Lord, let the order of monks be large. Many are the jujube fruits prepared by me. The things to be drunk will be perfect on account of the juice of the jujube fruits." End quote. The Lord consented by becoming silent. Then that poor workman, having obtained the Lord's consent, having risen up from the seat, having greeted the Lord, departed, keeping his right side towards him. Monks heard it said, quote, "The order of monks, with the Enlightened One at the head, is invited for tomorrow by a poor workman. The things to be drunk will be perfect on account of the juice of jujube fruits." End quote. These 8 walking for alms that morning. People heard it said, quote, "The order of monks with the Enlightened One at the head is invited by the poor workman." End quote. These conveyed much solid food and soft food for the poor workman. Then that poor workman, at the end of that night, having had sumptuous solid food and soft food prepared, had the time announced to the Lord, saying, quote, "Lord, it is time. The meal is ready." End quote. Then the Lord, dressing in the morning, taking his bowl and robe, approached the poor workman's dwelling, and having approached, he sat down on the appointed seat, together with the order of monks. Then that poor workman served the monks in a refectory. The monks spoke thus, quote, "Sir, give a little, sir." Quote, end quote. He said, quote, "Do not you, honored sirs, accept so very little," saying, quote within quotes, "This is a poor workman," end quote within quotes, "Much solid food and soft food was prepared by me. Honored sirs, accept as much as you please. End quote. Quote, Sir, it is not for this reason that we accept so very little, but we ate, having walked for alms this morning. That is why we are accepting so very little. End quote. Then that poor workman looked down upon, criticized, spread it about, saying, quote, How can the reverend sirs, invited by me, eat elsewhere? Yet am I not competent to give as much as they please? End quote. Monks heard this poor workman who spread it about. Those who were modest monks spread it about, saying, quote, How can these monks invited somewhere eat somewhere? End quote. Quote, Is it true, as is said, monks, that the monks invited somewhere ate somewhere? End quote. Quote, It is true, Lord. End quote. The enlightened one, the Lord, rebuked them, saying, quote, How, monks, can these foolish men, eat elsewhere? It is not, monks, And thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. In an out-of-turn meal, there is an offense of expiation. And thus this rule of training for monks came to be laid down by the Lord. Now, at that time, a certain monk became ill. A monk taking alms food went up to that monk, and having gone up, he spoke thus to that monk, quote, Eat, your reverence, end quote. Quote, Very well, your reverence, but there is for me the expectation of a meal, end quote. Alms food was conveyed to that monk in the evening. That monk did not eat as much as expected. They told this matter to the Lord. Then the Lord, on this occasion, in this connection, having given reasoned talk, addressed the monks, saying, quote, I allow you, monks, when a monk is ill, to eat an out-of-turn meal. And thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. In an out-of-turn meal, except at the right time, there is an offense of expiation. In this case, a right time is a time of illness. This is a right time in this case. End quote. And thus this rule of training for monks came to be laid down by the Lord. One interesting thing about that one is I had been thinking, after reading the previous one, I think, that it's always scrupulous monks who, obeying the recently established rule, refrain from doing something when they're ill or whatever it is. And then Lord Buddha makes the exception. But in this case, he didn't refrain. He broke the rule. And then Lord Buddha said it's okay to break the rule because he's ill. So that's interesting. All right, that was all that I wanted to say. Still reading. At that time, people, at the time of giving robes, having had a meal prepared together with the robes, invited monks, saying, quote, Having offered food, we will present, you, with robes, end quote. The monks, being scrupulous, did not consent, saying, quote, It is forbidden by the Lord to eat an out-of-turn meal, end quote. See Pacittiya 32, 3 and 4, end quote, . Thank you, Miss Horner. Mrs. Quote, should be set forth. In an out-of-turn meal, except at a right time, there is an offense of expiation. In this case, a right time is a time of illness, a time of giving robes, a time of making robes. This is a right time in this case, end quote. And thus this rule of training for monks came to be laid down by the Lord. Then the Lord, dressing in the morning, taking his bowl and robe, with the venerable Ananda as his attendant, came up to a certain household, and having come up, he sat down on the appointed seat. Then these people gave a meal to the Lord and to the venerable Ananda. The venerable Ananda, being scrupulous, did not accept. Quote, Take it, Ananda, end quote, he said. Quote, Very well, Lord, but, there is for me the expectation of a meal, end quote. Quote, Well now, Ananda, having assigned it, to another, and take, this food, end quote. Then the Lord, on this occasion, in this connection, having given reasoned talk, addressed the monks, saying, quote, I allow you, monks, having assigned, parentheses, food to another, end parentheses, to eat an out-of-turn meal. And thus, monks, should it be assigned, quote, then quotes, I will give the meal that I am expecting to so-and-so, end quote, then quotes, end quote. All right. An out-of-turn meal means invited to any one meal of the 5, parentheses, kinds of, close parentheses, meals, having set this to one side. If he eats any one other meal of the 5, all right, that's the words that it says here. And parentheses, kinds of, close parentheses, meals, this means an out-of-turn meal. Oh, right, okay. There's 5 kinds of meals, and if you eat one of the 5 kinds of meals when it's not time to eat one of the 5 kinds of meals, that's an out-of-turn meal. But if it's not one of the 5 kinds of meals, then it's okay. Do you remember the 5 kinds of meals? I'd be interested to know what they are so that I know what the many, many, many exceptions are, because I'm all about finding the loopholes, right? Just kidding. Okay, except at a right time means setting aside a right time. Time of illness means sitting in one seat, he is not able to eat as much as he pleases. This means that at a time of illness, parentheses, an out-of-turn meal, and parentheses, may be eaten. Okay. Time of giving robes means 3 dots. Time of making robes means 3 dots. See Pacittiya 32. All right. Previous episode. Miss Horner didn't want to translate. If, except at a right time, he accepts, parentheses, food, close parentheses, saying, quote, I will eat 3 dots, end quote. Same, see the previous episode, end parentheses, 3 dots. If he thinks that it is not an out-of-turn meal when it is not an out-of-turn meal, there is no offense. There is no offense if it is at a right time, if he eats having assigned, parentheses, a meal, end parentheses, if he eats 2 or 3 invitations together. All right. If he eats the invitations in succession, if he is invited by a whole village, he eats anywhere in that village. If invited by a whole guild, he eats anywhere in that guild. If being invited, he speaks saying, quote, I will take alms food, end quote. If it is the regular supply of food, if it is food, parentheses, allowed by, end parentheses, ticket. If it is, parentheses, food given, end parentheses, on a day of the waxing or waning of the moon. If it is, parentheses, given, close parentheses, on an observance day. If it is, parentheses, given, close parentheses, on the day after an observance day. Setting aside the 5, parentheses, kinds of, close parentheses, meals, there is no offense in, parentheses, eating, close parentheses, any other. If he is mad, if he is the first wrongdoer. The 3rd, meaning the 33rd. I wanted to share something briefly. I meant to share it at the beginning, but in between episodes is as good a time as any. Episodes in between readings. A few months ago, or perhaps several, His Holiness the 17th Karmapa had said, he had sent a letter, posted a letter. I forget if it was for a holiday or for his birthday or what, but anyway, I'll just read an excerpt from it. Of course, Samantabhadra's King of Aspiration prayers, parentheses, which is extracted from the Gandavyaha chapter of the Avatamsaka Sutra and sums up its essence, end parentheses, tells us that atop every particle in our world there are as many pure realms as there are atoms in the universe, and that in each of these pure realms reside myriads of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Wow. He goes on, this is not just an analogy. It describes the way things actually are. However, due to the limitations of our human condition, we are only able to witness things one at a time in a linear manner. And accordingly, we talk about a series of historical Buddhas appearing one after the other. And of course, in our current era, we have the good fortune of being able to call ourselves the disciples of one of these countless Buddhas, the one who started life as Prince Siddhartha, attained perfect awakening under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, and thereafter became known as Buddha Shakyamuni, Lord Buddha that we're reading about. So I became intrigued. I spoke to my friend Ryan at Praxis Behind the Obscure, and he was familiar with this sutra and talked about how this is the one that it's like fractals. It's called the flower ornament scripture. So I speculate that it is kind of inspired by or revolving around a flower ornament, you might say. Someone looking at a mandala or a flower ornament and coming to an awakening of realization of the petals and petals within petals and flowers within flowers and the ever awakening of the blooming of things and so on and so forth. And so I searched and I asked my friend Ryan where would be the best place to get that, and he recommended a particular translation. Ta-da! It arrived today, I think, just today. The Flower Ornament Scripture, a translation of Avatamsaka Sutra by Thomas Cleary, the translation by Thomas Cleary. So, it's very, very thick. It is a Mahayana Sutra, so obviously we won't be getting to it until after we finish the Tipiṭaka. And at the moment, I'm not sure exactly what century it comes from, so I don't know if we'll be reading it early in the Mahayana or later, but that's exciting. I will have to arrange some things to find space for it in the bookshelf that is currently packed full of books. But some of those books are not as impressive as this book, so they're going to get bumped to somewhere in here. For those listening to the audio, I'm talking to the people watching the video and pointing to various bookshelves and things in the background from where I'm sitting. Okay, should we do Pacittiya 34? Why not? Expiation, Pacittiya 34. At one time, the Enlightened One, the Lord, was staying at Savatthi in the Jeta Grove in Anathapindika's monastery. Now, at that time, a woman lay follower, the mother of Kana, had faith and was virtuous. Kana came to be given to a certain man in a village as a wife, by her parents. Nothing weird. Then Kana went to her mother's house on some business or other. Then Kana's husband sent a messenger to Kana saying, quote, "Let Kana come back. I desire Kana's return." End quote. I desire your attention. That was on point, Devo. Then the woman lay follower, Kana's mother, saying, quote, "It is awkward to go empty-handed," end quote, cooked a cake. When the cake was cooked, a certain monk walking for alms came up to the dwelling of the woman lay follower, Kana's mother. Then the woman lay follower, Kana's mother, gave the cake to that monk. He, having gone away, told another, and she gave him a cake. He, having gone away, told another, and she gave him a cake. As soon as the cake was ready, it disappeared. We had something similar happen where a postman came and was kind of like, "Oh, I'm the postman." And so we're like, okay, I guess he wants a tip or something. And then he went to the post office and told the other postman, and then they all went. I wish I was joking. Anyway, a second time did Kana's husband send a messenger to Kana saying, quote, "Let Kana come back. I desire Kana's return." End quote. A second time did the woman lay follower, Kana's mother, thank you, saying, quote, "It is awkward to go empty-handed," end quote, ... Getting a little sloppy. If it disappeared. A third time did Kana's husband send a messenger to Kana saying, quote, "Let Kana come back, I desire Kana's return. If Kana does not come back, I will take another wife." End quote. Charming. Although I'm sure that's just how it was back then, back in 1962. Anyway, a third time did the woman lay follower Kana's mother, saying, quote, "It is awkward to go empty-handed, it disappeared. Then Kana's husband procured another wife. Kana heard, quote, "It is said that another wife is taken by this man," end quote. She stood weeping. Then the Lord, dressing in the morning, taking his bowl and robe, came up to the dwelling of that woman lay follower, Kana's mother, and having come up, he sat down on the appointed seat. Then the woman lay follower, Kana's mother, approached the Lord, and having approached and greeted the Lord, she sat down at a respectful distance. As she was sitting down at a respectful distance, the Lord spoke thus to the woman lay follower, Kana's mother, quote, "Why does this Kana weep?" End quote. Then the woman lay follower, Kana's mother, told this matter to the Lord. Then the Lord, having 3 dots, gladdened the woman lay follower, Kana's mother, with talk on Dhamma, rising from his seat, departed. Now, at that time, a certain caravan was desirous of going from Rajagaha to the south. A certain monk, walking for alms food, entered that caravan for alms food. A certain lay follower had barley meal given to that monk. He, having gone away, told another, and he had barley meal given to him. He, having gone away, told another, and he had barley meal given to him. Just being dramatic. He, having gone away, told another, and he had barley meal given to him. As soon as provisions for the journey were ready, they disappeared. Then that lay follower said to these people, quote, "Masters, wait until tomorrow. As soon as provisions for the journey are ready, they are given to the masters. I will prepare provisions for the journey." End quote. Saying, quote, "Master, we are unable to wait. The caravan is setting out." End quote. They went away. Then, as that lay follower, having prepared provisions for the journey, was going along last, thieves robbed, parentheses him, and parentheses. People, 3 dots, spread it about, saying, quote, "How can the recluses, sons of the Sakyans, not knowing moderation, accept parentheses provisions, end parentheses, this, parentheses, man, close parentheses, having given to them, going along last, was robbed by thieves," end quote. Monks heard these people who 3 dots spread it about. Then these monks told this matter to the Lord. Then the Lord, in this connection, on this occasion, having given reasoned talk, addressed the monks, saying, quote, "Because of this, monks, I will make known a rule of training for monks founded on 10 reasons. For the excellence of the order, 3 dots, for following the rules of restraint." Now, where, what? All right. CFBD I-37 and above P-87. For the 10 reasons, the excellence of the order, 3 dots, for following the rules of restraint. What are the other 8 rules? What are the other 8 reasons? I'd like to know them. This doesn't sound familiar. Why are you putting 3 dots referring to something in a completely other section that we haven't read yet, Miss Horner? This makes me upset. Please don't do it. She passed away 19 years ago, so. Miss Horner, why? Okay. And thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. If a monk going up to a family, parentheses who, close parentheses, asking, should invite him, parentheses, to take, close parentheses, care of barley gruel, 2 or 3 bowlfuls may be accepted by a monk desiring them. Should he accept more than that, there is an offense of expiation. Having accepted 2 or 3 bowlfuls, having taken them back from there, they must be shared together with the monks. This is the proper course in this case. If a monk going up to a family means there are 4 parentheses kinds of family. Kinds of is in parentheses. Family is not. And I bet that these days, if you ask people who are left-leaning, there's more than 4. The other folks say there's only 1! 2.5 kids, 1 dog! Yeah, cishet normative, you know how it is. Noble family, Brahmin family, the caste system, right, even more traditional. Noble family, Brahmin family, merchant family, low-class family. Going up to means going there. A cake means whatever is prepared as a present. I heard you were having a problem with cockroaches, so I prepared some poison for you. Here, have a cake. Oh, don't eat it. It's a present. Any present. It's a cake. All right. I'm only kidding. My sense of humor is a little odd. I know. I'm sorry. Barley gruel means whatever is prepared as provisions for a journey. All right. So like in this case it was cake, but it could be anything, I think is the idea. Asking should invite means they say, quote within quotes, take just as much as you want, and quote within quotes, desiring means wanting. 2 or 3 bowlfuls may be accepted means 2 or 3 bowlfuls may be accepted. When we start packing that 4th one, should he accept more than that means if he accepts more than that, there is an offense of expiation. Having accepted 2 or 3 bowlfuls, while taking them back from there, seeing a monk, he should be told, quote in quotes, 2 or 3 bowlfuls were accepted by me in such and such a place. So do not accept, parentheses, anything, close parentheses, there, end quote in quotes. If seeing, parentheses, him, close parentheses, he does not tell, parentheses, him, close parentheses, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If although told he accepts, there is an offense of wrongdoing. Aren't these rules of expiation? Having taken them back from there, they must be shared together with the monks means returning. Having taken them back, they must be shared. All right. This is the proper course in this case means this is the appropriate course in this case. Proper means appropriate. If he thinks that there are more when there are more than 2 or 3 bowlfuls, and in parentheses accepts, there is an offense of expiation. If he is in doubt as to whether there are more than 3 dots. If he thinks that there are less when there are more than 2 or 3 bowlfuls, and, in parentheses, accepts, there is an offense of expiation. If he thinks that there are more when there are less than 2 or 3 bowlfuls, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If he is in doubt as to whether there are less than 2 or 3 bowlfuls, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If he thinks that there are less when there are less than 2 or 3 bowlfuls, there is no offense. He already defined large, medium, and small bowl, so I think it's safe to use the large bowl for this. Right? There is no offense if he accepts 2 or 3 bowlfuls. If he accepts less than 2 or 3 bowlfuls, if they give what is prepared neither as a present nor as provisions for a journey, if they give the remainder of what is prepared either as a present or as provisions for a journey, if they give because the journey is given up, if they belong to relations, if they are invited, if they are for the good of another, if it is by means of his own property, if he is mad, if he is the first wrongdoer. The 4th. All right. So the 33rd seems like, don't be rude. If you're invited to dinner, don't eat somewhere else before you go to dinner. And if you already have dinner plans and someone offers you food, you can eat it, just have that dinner go to someone else. Don't go there and be like, oh, just a little, please. Just don't be rude, And then this, don't inconvenience other people to such an extent that they get divorced. I mean, they didn't really like that. Okay, that story was interesting. That it seems like she's better off without a husband that's going to be like, come hither or I will find another wife. Like, let him go, I'm sure that back then in India, being a divorcee could be seen as a stigma by a lot of traditional households. So there's that. But these are all other issues. So working within the framework of the society, the societal norms at the time, Lord Buddha seemed to be wanting the monks not to, make trouble in the society that they were in, which is kind of an interesting thing to observe, because then it makes one wonder how that approach would be different now. Of course, there's plenty of places where, depending on who you ask, the norm might either be different or considered undesirable. The norm could now be considered terrible, as certain norms a couple episodes ago were kind of upsetting to me, you might remember if you saw those. Well, all right. If you have any thoughts about those two rules of expiation, do comment below. And see where we are. See that bookmark? We're toward the end. We're getting toward the end of the second book. There are 6 books of rules. So you have kind of an idea of when you can check back in with the Buddhist Books podcast to see if it's gotten good yet. The discourses and teachings of Lord Buddha will be coming later. So if we're in Tipiṭaka 57 now, if we guess and say that in episode 60, I'm not sure, but if we say episode 60 will be the end of the second book, then it's safe to estimate that there'll be 180 of these Tipiṭaka episodes before we get to something that isn't rules. Some of them are amusing, some of them are interesting, and some of them reveal things. I was noticing, you might remember a couple months ago and a few weeks ago, that the episodes were revealing, things like having great respect for microscopic organisms, or, things like that, assumptions made by Lord Buddha at the time. And then in these recent episodes, it's revealing other assumptions that are like, all right. Well, the teachings better be good, because so far this is just sort of the same old shit, Right. How good do these teachings have to be? How useful do they have to be toward bringing a person toward contentment and or enlightenment in order to justify so much chauvinism? Pretty good. They have to be pretty good. But maybe they wouldn't have survived if Lord Buddha had been like, hey, monks and nuns, you are equals. Monks and nuns can hang out together. They, just don't have sex, but you can go in boats together, you can walk together, and if people talk, fuck them, let them talk. They're backwards. If you were around in 2022, which is a year 2,600 years from now, then you would understand that their opinion is fucked. Ignore it and do what I'm saying, because it's more truly enlightened than you'll find among any of these people in 6th century BCE. Perhaps his order would not have lasted very long. And as we all know, the great Machiavelli, Bodhisattva, no. As he said, what was it? Il fini justifica I mezzi. I know I'm not pronouncing the J. I don't know why I do that. But anyway. Or it's a G. Giustifica. Il fini giustifica I mezzi. The ends justify the means. So whatever you got to do to get it done. Well, anyway, I don't have any constructive thoughts, and this probably isn't very uplifting. I know sometimes people tune into a program like this so that they can feel, Thank you. Wow, I feel so much better, and I'm just here talking crap. Now you know what you're in for, and now you can unlike or like and subscribe. If you're into it, if you're into just a person reading ancient Buddhist Theravadan scriptures and then honestly reflecting on what they say, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you're into it, click that notification button. All right, that's enough out of me. I'll go ahead and close now. To the north and to the south, to the east and to the west, to the spirits of light among us and to the spirits below, we send out our reverent love and compassion. May all beings be happy. May all beings be serene. May all beings be in peace. Oh.